If you want to make 500, 700,000, or even $1 million per year as a product manager in tech, keep watching this video. I'm going to cover the fundamentals of everything you need to know in order to build your successful and financially rewarding product management career brick by brick. First thing you need to understand is that product managers can make a lot of money. They can earn 400, 500, 700,000, $1 million in leadership product roles. You can make $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million a year. Yes, these are actual compensation packages. Of course, in order to get into these crazy $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million roles, you have to get into leadership. You have to get into the top tech companies. Very restricted pool of people that are working there, but it can be done. If you want to take leadership out of the equation, then the biggest product managers that are leading maybe small teams and not director roles, I'm talking group PM, principal PM, usually top out at $1 million a year. However, that's still about 20 times more than the average compensation for a U.S. worker. So it is pretty good. So if you want to reach $1 million, the first thing you need to understand is that it is possible to reach $1 million a year as a product manager in tech. You just need to understand that these compensation levels are real. You must accept that. Otherwise, the rest of the video does not make any sense. A lot of times this is done through equity because these are public companies, not through base pay or bonuses. But the important thing to take away is that you can make a lot of money as a product manager. Most of these high paying jobs, I'm talking 700,000 and above, are in just a few geographies: San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle area, and New York, to name the few top ones, and a few other geographical locations. But the biggest compensations are in those three markets. So if you want to be at the very top of the compensation ladder, then you need to be in those geos. If you're not, you will not be able to be at the very top. That's fine. You just need to understand that that's how it works. If you want to be an actor, if you want to be in entertainment, if you want to be in movies, you probably should move to Los Angeles. If you want to be in finance, you probably should move to New York. And if you want to be in tech as a product manager, you should probably move to the San Francisco Bay Area or Seattle, or New York as a third option. The majority of the compensation you can get these days are from tech companies that are currently public, whose stock is currently tradable, and it's liquid, and it's trading pretty well. It is not through startups. Startups generally have a low chance of success, and in order for your equity to be meaningful, you need to get in pretty early on. The reason we don't hear about all the startups that failed is because they failed. Now, I'm not here to talk negatively about startups. I love startups. I've done a few myself. I've joined a few myself, and I've ran a few myself. And startups are fun, but they're not a great vehicle to actually developing equity and compensation. They're a good opportunity to learn quickly, to build things, maybe to work with a crew or people that you like, but they're not a great vehicle for actually having runaway success from a compensation perspective, at least today, at least compared to a top 200 or 300 tech company and the equity that you can unlock by working there. So that means that if you want to get to the 700,000, 800,000 and above, you should probably plan to work for a big tech company, at least at some point. Of course, startups can work, but we find very often, because we negotiate a lot of these startup offers as well for product managers, very often it's hard to get meaningful packages, certainly meaningful from a liquid compensation perspective, but even meaningful from an equity perspective. A lot of the times startups don't want to pay compensation in base, and they don't want to pay a lot of equity on the backside either. The reality with startups is they a little bit prey on the inexperienced, and a lot of younger folks that are maybe just getting into product kind of get suckered into joining the startups, working for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and not getting much of anything because the equity that you got at the beginning ends up not being worth anything. So the third element to understand is you probably are going to need to work for top tech, at least as of recording this video in 2025. This was the case in 2017 and 18 when I kind of started to get into big tech product management. It's still the case now. Yes, it's still the case even in the age of AI. And yes, if I think over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I don't see this changing. It's hard to really predict things beyond 5 years, again, being the age of AI. But right now, for the next 5 years, I predict that if you want to make the big bucks in product management, the right place to go is going to be big tech. Big companies with predictable liquid stock prices. The biggest jump in compensation comes from two things and two things only, assuming that we've taken the fact that you're going to be working for a big public company. They are from switching companies and starting a new job, because your negotiation here provides the biggest possible leverage to increase your compensation by 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. All depends how well you interview, how well you negotiate. And the second opportunity to increase your compensation is when you're actually working for these jobs and you're getting a promotion, you're getting a performance review, and you're negotiating for additional refresher stocks, which increase the equity and the total compensation you get, usually over the next 4 years after grant. So those are the biggest opportunities for you. Switching jobs, getting a promotion. And switching jobs is by far the bigger one, which means that most of the time when you're planning ahead and you're thinking about your career in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, the biggest way to add compensation is going to be to jump between companies. Now, if you love your company, you love your team, you love your product, and you're in a growth stage and everything's going well, by all means, go ahead and work there as long as you want. But you should understand the opportunity cost is that these compensation ranges rise pretty fast, and the market tends to rise faster than you can when you're working in the same job. We see this time and time again. As an example, if you stay in the same role for 5 years, maybe you're coming in as a $300,000 compensation all in, and by the time you leave, you could go for another job that's $500,000. But if you stay at that company, it's going to be very difficult to negotiate anything beyond, let's say, 350, 375. You're not going to jump all the way to 500. Therefore, please understand that if these are the big inflection points in your career, in your earning potential, you need to prioritize jumping to the next job, and therefore training for the interviews, and therefore preparing your resume in advance, not when you actually need to apply. I'm sorry if I'm starting to sound like your dad here. I'm not trying to go for that. I'm just trying to say that in order to actually do any of these things, you have to be proactive. Practicing for the interviews takes months. Refining your resume, applying, and getting your foot in the door could also take months. Preparing a resume and actually generating the impact that you need to in order to have a good resume in the first place could take quarters. When you're preparing for your next jump, you might need to think about it 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 months in advance. And that's where proactive product management career planning really comes into play. But we're only having this discussion because you want to make 700,000, 800,000, or maybe even $1 million in product management. So that's what it takes. Certainly, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to continue making 100, 150, 175, maybe thousand, and going into my comments on LinkedIn and telling me that no one can make 500 and 700. But if you want to actually make the jump and think about these things that I've just said, then it could start you on the path. And eventually, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, yes, you could be also one of our success stories inside PCA, or your own success story by just accomplishing this, by reframing some of your thinking. So this will just get you started. If you have any questions about your specific situations, hey, I'm here now. How do I optimize for my compensation in the next 2, 3, 5 years? Should I jump into a next company, or should I stay, or should I go for promo, or how do I do that? Any questions you have about that, we're going to be working on exactly this question. How do we get you into the most lucrative and financially rewarding product management career that we can do? And if you're looking for your next product management role right now, please use the link in the description to schedule a call to speak with our team at PCA, and we can see if we could work together and help you land your next product role faster. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.